My spirit is infinite. I don't waste moments on what's insignificant. Moments move different when you discipline. Silence teach lessons they never mention it. My bloodline needs healing. I'm reaching for magic beyond what's indigenous. Not just the drums or the rituals, but the knowing that live in the sinew and ligaments. I walk slow, but I ride.
Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I'm the bridge connecting the next generation to federal contractor. I am Ratwan Hill. And with me, I have the man, the myth, the legend. And if you don't know who he is by now, you might want to ask Anthropic, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, man, how you doing on this lovely Thursday?
I am extremely concerned on this lovely Thursday because I believe that the executive branch said the quiet stuff out loud. That confirms that we have a internal threat to the Constitution. And what I'm specifically concerned about is that the House of Representatives came together and finally did the people's business in putting a war powers resolution in place. And now, of course, the Senate's got to ratify their section of that. But the president had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to tweet out a message that started with a sentence that said, the actions of the House of Representatives was of no matter. And when you have an executive branch that believes that about the Article 1 office, right? The people's representative, it explains some of the other overreaches that we've seen from this executive branch, because they believe that there are no checks and balances. And I believe that we're in a position right now where we need to execute against the recommendation that I made some broadcasts ago, when I said an error doesn't become a mistake unless you don't correct it. And therefore, we need to quarantine this executive branch until that administration's clock runs out.
Yes, sir. Now, when you say quarantine, what is that exactly? What does that mean? Because in my mind, I visualize, okay, we got them locked off and isolated from everybody else. Like, so exactly what do you mean by quarantine?
I mean that the Constitution, which is a powerful document that people have lost sight of, it allows us to run this country without a president, right? The House and the Senate have the ability to administer and manage the needs of the people without an executive branch. And so that's what the preamble, right, to the Constitution suggests, right? Whenever an office becomes offensive, we have the ability to replace it. Well, what happens if we have to replace the executive branch in the middle of the term? Well, the Constitution allows for remedy so that we can continue to manage the people's business while we're trying to get a new commander-in-chief, right? A new figurehead to take that office that's going to represent us on a global stage in a fashion that's commensurate with the qualities of these United States of America.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, okay, so it still has to go through Senate as well to get passed. So what would be the best steps forward to ensuring that Senate do their part and that they both come together and both pass the war powers resolution? That what would be the next steps that we could do to help assist that?
Well,
or is it?
Fortunately, in this particular instance, the ranking member of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, happens to be my senator. Right. And as the audience knows, I'm the president of the New York Elite Service Disabled Veteran Network. And so what we're asking you to do in regard to the Contract Our Veterans Act, I am going to do as it relates to the War Powers Act. Right. I'm going to reach out directly to the powers that be, and I'm going to encourage them, right, to do the right thing. Because in point of fact, we need to get our men and women out of harm's way so that we don't experience an unintended consequence in the fog of war. Like, for example, the assertion that it may have been a U.S. munition that hit the Kuwaiti airport, right? If our people weren't in the Middle East, right? If they weren't trying to block the Strait of Hormuz, there would be no opportunity to point a finger at the American people, right? So the Congress has spoken, right? The House of Representatives have spoken, right? The president needs to rein this shit show in and come to Congress and explain why we have over $100 billion expended against a deal that right now is going to be worse than what we had before. And I don't want to get on that soapbox, but what we are required to do right now is cause the mechanisms that were put in place by the Constitution to work. People are under the misnomer that the people of these United States of America don't still have power. And we have to correct that understanding, right? The fact that we have passed these legislations and regulations that allow for these super PACs, we need to get them out of our election process, right? I think it was the state of Hawaii that recently passed a legislation or regulation that said that corporations are not entities that can participate in election processes, right? We need to pass that because the power of the elections are with the state. We need to pass a law like that across the board so we can take these crazy donor opportunities out where we have situations like a Elon Musk and put $240 million into a presidential campaign. A Adelson can put another couple $100 million in and therefore buy, right, the presidency. Call it what it is, right? Let's call it what it is, right? We have a need to correct our electoral process. And fortunately, where's my girl's book? My good friend Sophia Nelson has put a book out there for your generation, Mr. Hill, to read, because it is your season to redefine freedom by capturing control of the constitutional shenanigans that are going on and drawing a line in the sand and saying no more.
No, and that dovetailed into our next segment, a segment of what I wanted to discuss. When you say that our generation has, it's up to our generation to make the changes and what redefine freedom. But right now, it seems to be a strong census in our generation, and I think just in the United States. Well, I would say, let me break it down from a lowercase, uppercase perspective. From a lowercase perspective, that they can afford to pay attention. I mean, that's the best way I could put it. That we're in a space where we already talked about inflation is beating the cost of living and the wages. So I feel as if that we're in a point in time where peak was two sides of the coin as I think of it, but we're at a point in time where people are just focusing. A lot of people are focusing on surviving, but we also do have the younger, innovative people who lean forward in the AI, who lean forward in the business at a younger age. So I'm thinking it would probably maybe be up to the generation who can afford to pay attention to ultimately, engage. And that goes to what you were saying about money. The person who has the money is the one who's running the show ultimately. So do you think that's a concern for my generation, or in regards to us being able to redefine freedom?
Yeah, I think that's a big concern for your generation. And it's a big concern for your generation because the invisible hand of big business, right? The invisible hand of they have caused the generation before you to believe that they were powerless to influence the political process. And so your generation was never taught how to interface with the political process. And so your generation doesn't know the unique power that we own as we the people. They hear those words and they think that, somebody's about to recite the preamble to the Constitution, right? But that is a unique power that your community, your generation owns that they're not leveraging. And they need to be shown that right now we have some outcomes that are coming out of our government that are occurring because the generation before them abdicated their authority. They gave it over to special interest groups. They gave it over to lobbyists, right? They allowed themselves to be hypnotized by the cult of personality and ding, 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 ding in November, show up to the voting booth and pull the lever, but never participate beyond that. Your generation has got to wake up and see the ills of that way, right? So that we can protect, right? We can take control of our Constitution. We have one of the richest and most powerful assets in the world. And that's the boundaries of these United States of America and all of the resources that are within it. And the most important of those are its people. And so anybody that counts America out, right? Anybody that wants to say, America is a declining nation is making a mistake, because they don't know what exists within the hearts and minds of people like you. And once you all realize you've always had the power, right? Once you realize, like Dorothy did on that road in The Wizard of Oz, that guess what? I can say to these elected officials, I'd like you to do this, and they have to do it or risk being voted out of office. Then we start getting our hands back on the steering wheel and we start driving this bus that we call these United States of America into a direction that creates liberty. It creates prosperity. It creates the kind of nation that I enjoyed, that I want my daughter, I want your children to enjoy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And as you say that, what I was thinking about was, okay, how do we get the younger generation more involved and more engaged with that in regards to politics and Congress, And
well, wait a second now. Hold on a second now. If the misery that they're experiencing right now from the inability to afford to pay attention isn't getting their attention enough, then there's nothing that can be done. Right. So what has to happen, the younger generation needs to get up out from behind those game consoles, right, and sit down in a civic class and understand how their vote matters and participate in movements that are changing the economic dynamics within their community and the landscape across these United States. Stop looking to someone else to be responsible for the stuff that you're supposed to be responsible for. And Mr. Hill, I think that one day we really are going to have to allow you to open the kimono so that your generation understands what the art of the possible really looks like, right? They just don't know who you are yet. And folks, one of these days, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Retwan Hill, President and CEO of 18BM Solutions.
Yes,
but that's
sir,
another day.
Yes, sir. Yes. And and that is important, because you've been advocating for veterans, service disabled veteran owned small business for the better part of 20 plus years. And the message has been the same, and it only has been getting better and better and better doing all this change. So can we just break it down to why government or federal contracting should be the mechanism for veteran-owned small business, service disabled veteran-owned to everybody? Why should federal contracting be the area where they should look at to build generational wealth versus, say, becoming a streamer or podcaster or all the other things that are out there. Oh, why is federal contracting the essence? Why is that the wagyu? Why is that the wagyu?
Because within the federal contracting space, you have settled law that it equips you with superpowers that don't exist in the commercial or any other sector that you can employ yourself. And so within the federal space, there is settled law that says if you go out and ask for it, the government they have to give it to you. And there is a minimum $1.3 trillion demand signal out there that you can take advantage of if you get your feces amalgamated, right? If you become contract ready and contract viable. And we have a system that now allows you to dynamically become contract ready and contract viable. And so if you are a disabled veteran, it doesn't matter what your age range is. If you own that certification, you could go through a program and within 6 weeks own the capability and capacity to do the kind of things that Mr. Hill does. And he's humble about what he does, right? But I'll tell you, this is above the rim kind of stuff. And so if you're sitting there and you're a disabled veteran or you have a disabled veteran family member, you could attack a $1.3 trillion market opportunity and be sitting in a place where you've got a couple $100 million or at least $1 million of it in your own bank account tomorrow. So that's the reason why you should be looking at government contracting, because the other areas aren't as viable. They aren't as robust.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I wanted to dovetail into something that Sam Lee just did a interview with Jackie Burnett, who I believe she was a director over SBA's business development. I may be mispositioning her position.
She was senior leadership within the Small Business Administration, her last tenure before final retirement. Yes.
And she was responsible for integrating all the certifications into one SBA portal. Now, she described a couple things. One thing, she was talking about the unintended consequences of what they were doing that ultimately caused a 40% reduction into small businesses. Now, she feels as if the 8A program essentially, they always face a lot of text, but it's a lot of uncertainty in it. What is your read on that, coming from that position and saying it was an unintended consequence, and you've been beating the drum that having less small businesses participate makes this United States, this country less safe. What is your read on that? Should that be a red flag or a major concern, and how do we combat it?
I'm hard pressed to kind of punch down on that statement that that Sam and Ms. Burnett discussed, because they're victims right now, right? They're casualties of this particular action, which is absolutely crazy. But what you spoke about, the 40% reduction in available small businesses, that was an unintended consequence of an SBA action, had everything to do with the implementation of one of these efficiency strategies that is running rampant right now on steroids as a result of what this administration is doing under Executive Order 14240. But what Robinson Burnett talked about was the fact that when they implemented federal strategic sourcing, one of the outcomes that they experienced, which was an unintended consequence, was they immediately saw a 40% reduction in the available small businesses that were registered in the federal space. And I know that issue firsthand, because I was in direct consultation and wrestling with Jeff Kosis at that time about not implementing that, because it was impacting one of my clients. The truth of the matter is, you have a number of actions that occur in the federal government where an incremental movement over here causes a outcome over there that was unintended. And that's where the need for those people that are providing overarching governance on our nation, the need for them to have a balanced understanding of the interdependent nature of the relationship between the system of systems. And like, as an example, I think one of the things that we're going to have to do after we get this executive branch quarantined is we're going to have to take a look at a number of these other actions that were proffered by this particular administration, because some of them have been just downright damning. They've just been downright efficiency reducing. And this centralization of contracts under the federal government procurement agent, that is extremely suspect. That's an extremely suspect action that we need to take a look at again after we get this office quarantined, because the unintended consequence of that is that we're going to have fewer small businesses, right, to pull from to do contracts with the federal government, and it being the policy of Congress to use small businesses to the maximum extent possible, maximum extent practicable. It requires us to take another look at the unintended consequences that are even coming from this administration's actions.
And she said another thing that this was the one that really got me, where she was saying that they had an active contract action and they removed, what was it? I believe she said they removed the requirement from an active contract to put into another vehicle. Now, I believe in one of our private conversations, you said that does direct harm to a contractor, and it's not cost efficient when they do it that way. Is it what? Like,
yeah, when Jackie said that, that was the most concerning thing I heard in that interview, was the fact that ostensibly what she suggested was a small business's book of business was taken mid-contract and bundled or consolidated into another contract vehicle. And the thing that got me, which was a challenge, was that they had enlisted Jackie to help them resolve this issue, and she's not getting her calls returned. And that's a problem for me, because Jackie is a high flyer. She's a big player in the procurement loop, if you will, the procurement ecosystem. And if this administration has got offices not listening to a resource like her, NASA, we got a problem. We have a real problem that we need to rein in. So I would encourage everyone that's within the sound of my voice to get behind this movement that we need to reverse a lot of those actions that came out of that executive order shock and awe event. Was ridiculous.
Yes, sir. And on that note, we want to also, remind you guys to please reach out to your congressman and Congress office and representatives to ask them to co-sponsor the Contract Our Veterans Act and the Veteran Member Business Loan Act, right? And if you have the receipts that you did, you can take part, and you bring it to us and show us that you have proof that you reached out to your congressman and that they co-sponsored the bill. We're offering a free seat for you to participate in the Cotton Method, which is responsible for over 150 billion. You could do your own homework and research, but it is out there. But that's the opportunity. And again, if you don't, and then you just want to support the movement, there's other ways you can do it by either joining the Elite SDVOB network, volunteering for one of the positions, because we have a lot of opportunities at hand and we need assistance. Or if you don't want to do that, you can silently donate to us so we can keep pushing the movement and keep pushing the good fight. But ultimately, guys, this is going to take a village to push the movement. And Yeah, I did just want to throw that message out. But I did want to go into the Contract Our Veterans Act. Like, what is the makeup of it? Why is it so essential why should veterans care? Why should people care about the Contract Our Veterans Act? Like, how is that life changing for somebody?
You know, there are a lot of subtle arguments that can be made for the Contract Our Veteran Act, but the truth of the matter is, it's just the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a bill that we passed back in 1999, Public Law 10650, that gave our disabled veterans the opportunity to more fully participate in the contracting that the federal government lets, and therefore more robustly participate in the American dream. And we left the veterans off the table, right? The veterans that were in battle did not experience any less threat, any less trauma, right, than the veterans that were injured. And therefore, the right thing to do would be to give them the ability to equally self-determine for their families. But more importantly than that, right, and this is one of the things that we got to think about in a situation where we have an all volunteer army. And I'm not sure who said it, so somebody will figure out who this quote came from. But one of our presidents once said that, I think it was Eisenhower, that the rate at which future generations will serve in the defense of this nation, irrespective of the nature of the cause, is directly correlated to how they've seen previous generations who served this nation treated. So how we treat today's veterans is informing the future generations' desire to serve in the defense of this nation, should we require them, whether it be in a kinetic or an intellectual battlefield form. So the importance of just doing the right thing, right, is subordinated, in my opinion, by the signal, the message that we send to future generations from this right-minded action.
So essentially, you're saying that the most significant thing about this bill is the fact that it's doing the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, you know, we entered into an agreement with our servicemen and women when they, raise their hand and, swear their oath. And we say, listen, you go and you invest in defending this nation. And when you come back, we'll care for you. That's the agreement. Well, we've fallen down on half of that equation with him and her who bore the battle. And we can correct that by allowing them an opportunity to participate more broadly in our procurement process. And it couldn't be a more important season for us to have him and her, the patriots, if you will, participating in the procurement needs of our government, because this is a season where we've got all hands on deck. We got an all hands on deck call because we're trying to reshore manufacturing assets, right? We're trying to shore up our supply chains that are porous, right? We're trying to reinvent our economy, and the best people for America to invest in to get that done, I think, is him and her, who we've already invested in creating leadership skills. We've already invested in creating the kind of discipline that lets them solve complex tasks. So making an investment in that area, to me, just makes good patriotic sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, sir. And guys, on that note, I will reinforce one more time to ask your congressman to co-sponsor the Contract Our Veterans Act and Veteran Member Business Loan Act, and reach out to your senators and ask them to urgently, to immediately have a session to pass a War Powers Resolution Act so we can rein this in and, calm the waters overseas. And guys, on that note, I am Retwan Hill, and that is the Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time.